Morning, YouTube. As you can see, freshly bathed, because I'm hoping to get a haircut today after I go to work, once, of course, the haircut place is open, which is something I forgot about, because I forgot that nobody's used to being up ungodly early like me. So we're going to do a helmet video, which you guys usually tend to like. So this is going to be on one of the more interesting helmets, kind of historically and appearance-wise, that I have in my collection. I have an incredibly nice one. So this is the West German M62, which is their last version of the steel helmet they would have used before being replaced by the Schuberth. I do have a video on the Schuberth if you are interested in checking that out. That would be the helmet that would replace this. This would be used up into the 90s and I think the early 2000s to some degree, limited degree later, before being fully replaced by the Schuberth. Now it is, based on the shell, an M1 derivative. It's not quite really an M1 helmet, anything other than shape, because even the shape of this helmet is slightly different than that of an M1. It's also kind of smaller, tighter to the head than the M1. It's not in a one-size-fits-all configuration like the M1. It obviously came out in the 60s rather than in the 40s. And has a much weirder liner than the M1. But we gotta do some contextual history first. So, in order to get to the M62 style helmet, we have to go through two other helmets that the West German military was using at the time that they made. They had their own version of the M1, which everything I read just calls it the M1. Whether it was actually called that in German paperwork or not is kind of hard to find because I don't read German, I guess, but some of my German subscribers will probably correct me with what the model's actually called if it's not called the M1. They had literally a German-made copy of the American M1. Now, this would have been at the time when they were using a ton of American-made M1s that they would have just given them. Now that Germany is now divided down the middle, and obviously Berlin is divided down the middle, they needed something with the whole denazification thing. They could not be wearing the Stahlhelms anymore, except for some limited stuff, such as like forest game warden type people and border guards, because they didn't want the Soviets and the East Germans to think that a huge American army was bulking up on the border, so the border guards get to wear the Stahlhelm still, but that's about it. The regular German defense force at that time, the Bundeswehr, I believe my German's terrible, sorry, are using M1s, okay? So then they decide to make their own M1s, which is literally a copy of the American M1. The steel doesn't really change, the setup doesn't really change, still a 2-point chin strap, has a high pressure kind of fiber liner with the exact configuration of the early American World War II style liners, which is that kind of Tanner webbing. They would have used that from the 50s until 1960, and then they would come up with a new model that's very similar to this, but rather than a 3-point chin strap, it only has a 2-point chin strap, called the M60, and then they would realize, well, we can make this better, and then they would develop the M62 in 1962, and that's how we get to this helmet here. So this helmet is really a nice helmet as far as like M1 helmets go. It's got a liner that is made out of plastic that's held in place with this one big kind of rivet up here. Then it has a chin strap that is held in place with these rivets kind of around the edge. So that big rivet up there, there you go, shine the light on it so you can see it. And it works on kind of the same principle as the M1 liner, but without being a separate piece. It's a big kind of thicker plastic shell on the inside. It's not quite a full shell. There is little kind of relief cutouts to save material in it, but it does actually extend down past the rear of the shell. The liner does, as you can see it there. It is quite flexible. This liner can be moved quite a lot, and the Germans would keep this in the Schuberth where the liner would be able to be, you know, kind of adjusted and bent really well like that, and that's something that's going to help alleviate in the event of a blow to the head, whether it be from shrapnel, a shovel falling over, walking into a tree branch, you know, Something like that. It's going to mitigate that impact and absorb some of that by the fact that the liner has all this room to move and act as a natural spring for the shell. So it's a really kind of springy plastic. It can handle a lot of punishment. But we'll take a look at that when we flip the camera around here and look at the liner. Now, as I said, this helmet would become the standard German Army model, standard West German Defense Force model for quite a long time, about 40 years. And it would be eventually replaced in 1988 by the Schuberth, which wasn't really going to start being made until the end of 88, early 89. You don't really see soldiers having it until early 89. And then they would eventually, phase this out of service over the years. So, and it's a really nice helmet. It fits very well, as you see when we'll look at the liner and how it's very similar to the World War II era Stahlhelms with some kind of new takes. And then I will flip the camera around and we'll try it on, see how it fits, how it feels, how it looks on the head from various different angles, if it bites into my neck, simulating going prone, all that other good stuff. So stay tuned for that. We'll flip it around now and take a look at the liner. Alrighty, so here we are back with the West German M62. So as you can see, here's the chin strap. The chin strap is adjustable via these three kind of rounded off slider buckles. So it's quite nice and adjustable in that regard. The length of the chin strap here is adjustable with this little slider buckle right here that would slide along this strap. This does have a pad put on it for some reason. This is how I did receive it. It has this kind of weird foam cotton material covered pad. I don't know if that's something that everyone had. I don't see it in a lot of pictures, so probably not. Black and brass fittings for pretty much everything. And then you have your kind of standard, what would become standard for Austria and Germany eventually would be this style of chin strap closure where you have this kind of loop here. Two of them. One is broken at the top and one is solid at the top. So that way when you're in training or whatever, you could have this in it. It's a very secure fit and stuff like that, so your helmet won't come off. And then you have to push back and pull out in order to take your chin strap off. And then there is this one that has the split at the top, and what that's designed to do is you wear that when you're going into combat or something, and then if an explosion goes off underneath you, or somebody tries to grab your helmet and tear it off your head or something in a close quarters engagement or whatever, with a hard enough force, the chin strap will just break free because it's split there at the top and it'll just spring its way out if you pull hard enough. So, but it takes a pretty good amount of force to do. So taking a look here at the liner, you can see it has way down in there this kind of crown pad, this kind of foam rubber crown pad to protect that rivet that's holding in this big kind of plastic liner. You can see this plastic liner that this is running on, this leather, Stahlhelm-esque suspension is running on. Now it is adjustable, so this one is a size 55 to 57 right there. You can still see the ink stamp. It's in very, very good condition. It is adjustable here in the back on this aluminum kind of frame that the leather is wrapped around, this aluminum kind of sweatband. You have this little kind of screw dial that you can unscrew and you could slide and then retighten to make it the correct tightness you would like it to wear. And of course, all of this is riveted on a series of plastic arms connected to kind of a dome shaped, you could probably kind of see it in there with the light, right, there's kind of this dome shaped, smaller dome shaped plastic liner that has these four little arms that come off of it that hold the liner in place, the suspension anyways. So, and then here in the back you can see that there's this big huge pad to protect the chin strap from obviously rubbing against you and stuff like that. And also providing a little cutout for that little dial, so that's about how much adjustment you have in the sweatband, which is kind of interesting that the Germans would go that far to, be that considerate about the fit and finish and feel of this helmet. They would come in a variety of sizes, I think 4 of them if I'm not mistaken, and they would, like I said, issue these for about 40 years, which is an incredibly long time, incredibly long service life for a helmet. It's up there, believe it or not. There's not a lot of helmets that serve 40 years, so not many more anyways that serve 40 years. So it's the last hurrah of the Stahlhelm in the German military, really, the West German military anyways, which would be like the cultural successor of a lot of the earlier German military. So this is the last Stahlhelm, pretty much. So, and it's a far-flung thing from the very first Stahlhelms all the way back in World War I. So we will flip the camera back around now. I'm going to put this thing on. We're going to try it out, see how it fits and feels and whatnot, and then I will get to concluding the video. Okay, so we are back now here in front of the camera with the West German M62 Stahlhelm. We're now going to put this thing on, put this bad boy on here, and see how it fits and stuff. It should be still adjusted to my size, I hope. I do have a lot more hair since the last time I wore this, but we'll put it on anyways. So, initially, right off the bat, it looks like it fits really, really close to the head, which is alright. I'm not too concerned about that. It does need a little bit of adjustment here because of my extra large amounts of hair, but it does fit a little bit closer to the head. Alright, so here we go. Now you could wear the chin strap obviously a lot of different ways, but the primary way I see it is way down here. You don't really see it so much up near the chin. So this helmet fits quite well. I am glad that this one does have this little pad on it. It does make it a lot more comfortable to wear, I would assume. Obviously, you can see this thing looks kind of small on my head, but this is actually the size that I would wear if I was in the German Defense Force. It's not touching my ears, there's space there still, but it's just meant to fit kind of closer to the head than you would think. So it looks like it's meant to be, like it's way too small for my head. This is how it's supposed to be. Believe it or not, I am kind of right on the threshold of needing the larger size though, but this is the size I probably would have been issued had I been in the Bundeswehr back in the day. So, but it's a good helmet. It feels nice. It disperses the weight really well. The chin strap is, you know, I wish it wasn't quite this design, but it's relatively comfortable. It's dispersing the weight well. It's not cutting into my neck or anything too hard. It is obviously a very new helmet, so it would kind of form to you and stuff. Had this one been issued, it would have kind of worn out a little bit more and been a little bit more comfortable, which is, you know, alright. So, but now we'll flip it around. So as you can see, it does have quite a lot of movement in it because of that suspension system, that plastic suspension, which is good. That's going to help mitigate a lot of impact force being transferred into your skull. So we'll flip it around now, take a look from a bunch of different angles to see how this thing looks. From a bunch of different angles, and when I'm facing the wall, we'll look up as high as I can to see if it'll simulate, if it'll cut into my neck or any part while I'm simulating going prone, to see if it'll rock forward in front of my eyes, you know, obscuring my vision if that was the case and whatnot. So let's do that right now. So this is obviously the front profile of the helmet. This is the right side profile of the helmet. This is the rear profile of the helmet. Now, as you can see again, the liner is sticking down to kind of help cup around the head, making it a lot more stable. The rear chin strap, obviously very, very high cut, so I don't think this will cut in, but let's simulate going prone. It doesn't tug on the chin strap, doesn't tug on your neck, it doesn't move really all that much. It performs kind of like I thought it would. It's not rocking forward, it's not obscuring my view at all, so it would work quite well. And then this is the left side profile. Now this helmet would be obviously kind of, it would be issued with covers for the most of its life. You can find them without covers, but it did had to have a problem where, as you can see, it is rather shiny. And the reason for that being this shiny was because they used obviously the boiled linseed oil paint. That is very traditional, but it also only has very, very tiny fine sand in it. Now, unlike the American M1, where they would use cork in the paint, which produced this very kind of chunky, drab, you know, paint, they didn't, using the boiled linseed oil paint and the tiny, tiny little bits of sand, this helmet still ends up being very, very shiny. Not as shiny as it would be if it was entirely smooth, but still quite shiny. So you would see it issued with a cover for the vast majority of its life. But that's not really too big of a deal. The Germans didn't really seem to have too much of a problem with it. It would work out for them in the end, obviously, as it seems to have worked out for them. This helmet wouldn't see really a major conflict, at least with the Germans. You do see it kind of down in the Balkans and stuff like that in some limited use with the German military in the 90s, kind of in the rear, but they don't really see combat, a lot of those troops. So, but that's just how it is for some helmets, you know. Doesn't mean it's a bad helmet or anything by any means. So it's a good helmet from what I believe. So it, like I said, it fits very, very well, very, very snug, very, very close. It seems to work quite well. It doesn't really have a storied history or anything cool like that. It's just something you kind of see in some pictures for a long time. A lot of training exercises, a lot of parade type stuff, a lot of soldiers' information. You don't really see this in the field quite a lot because it never really made it there. It's one of those Cold War helmets. So, but it's a very, very cool helmet. It doesn't obscure your vision to the sides or any much. As you can see, it is a very, very high cut helmet, a very, very high sitting helmet, in the fact that it, in most helmets, I'm right against the rim when my fingers are in my ears, so I can, see if it blocks your hearing or not. This gives you almost all of your hearing. It blocks very little of your ears because it sits so high. And I can't really adjust it much lower without the shell like resting on top of my head. Probably have maybe a ½ inch of space there. But it does, obviously, with the bill, the little rim on it here, it does kind of stick down, blocking your view from above slightly, but you still have a pretty good range of vision. It doesn't really block your hearing. It's a very, very comfortable helmet. So I'm quite impressed with it, and a lot of you have one of these. They are getting very hard to find now, especially in good shape. So incredibly expensive, unfortunately, now. So, but they're a very, very cool helmet, and if you can find one, I highly recommend you add one to your collection, because it's like the best of the World War II style helms and the American M1 smashed together. So it's a very, very, very cool helmet. So thank you all for stopping by. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, maybe consider making a $1 donation to the Patreon. It goes a long ways, and it gets you into the Discord, which is a really cool way to get a hold of me, show me what you have. If you have any questions on anything or need help identifying something, that is really the only way I'm going to do it, is if you become a part of the Patreon, where $1 gets you a whole month of all the questions you could possibly want to ask for me. So, and there's also a lot of other people in there that if I don't know, they could probably toss their 2 cents in as well. So, thank you all for stopping by. Hopefully I can see you all here in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Unfortunately, it wasn't a very information heavy video, because I know you guys tend to like your information and stuff like that and your contextual history. This doesn't really have a whole lot of that. So, it wasn't really a helmet that saw any major conflicts or anything. So, and it's just a combination of what came before it. So not the most exciting story, I know. But thank you all, and hopefully I will see all of you here in the next video. Bye-bye now.